All right, welcome back, everybody, to another show of Flyweight Connections. Like always, my name is Chris. I'm here with my buddy Joe. Joe.
Hey, how you guys all doing tonight? So today, on today's episode, we have good buddy of mine, Jesse Lineberry, four-time Virginia duck calling champion and four-time competitor in Main Street duck calling world champion in Stuttgart. Hey, how you doing today, Jesse?
I'm doing well, guys. How are y'all?
Not too bad, not too bad. Just finished up duck season.
Yeah.
Was yours as bad as mine?
You were there when I finished mine.
Yeah, I know. So before we get into it, let's kind of talk about y'all's little experience because I know you went down there with Joe in Louisiana down as Riceley's. And Joe probably doesn't want to talk about it because I guess it takes a little from his manhood, I guess. I don't know. But so how was it? Well, I mean, regardless, I mean, Joe knows I don't care if I'm killing ducks, but if I'm in the blind or if I'm out there just getting after it, for me, it's fun. So.
Yeah, it was a great time. We had a lot of fun, a lot of laughs, a lot more laughs than ducks, but sometimes that's okay. The hospitality was great, and the food is incredible. I could move down there and just eat the food. It's great, and it's a different kind of hunting than what I grew up doing. I've hunted in a pit 2-3 times in my whole life, so it's cool to do that kind of hunting and see how folks do it and set up decoys and hear Joe run a spec call, which he does really well, and get some specs to at least take a look, which is really cool. So it was a really good time. We had a lot of laughs and picked on Joe, me and the boys, gave him a hard time. So all good times.
So did he take you to the infamous Daryl's?
He did, and it changed my life. Yeah, it was the best sandwich I've ever had my whole life. I'm a big Jersey Mike's fan, and my wife picked up Jersey Mike's tonight, and it was good, but it's not the same. It just it took something special away.
That's like his go-to too. Is like every time. I think the first time he's like, well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna have some good eating. I think the first, what was it? We did good the first time we went down there, Lexington. We still
we killed ducks down there.
Yeah, we killed ducks. But I think that the last time we went to the pit blind, when we took TRD. We went to Daryl's. Was definitely a lifesaver, and man, it's good eating. So. We'll see here in, I don't know, maybe in the next coming years, Joe's probably going to try to franchise them out. So we'll see. But I guess let's go ahead and get into it, man. I was actually curious about one thing. So duck calling, how did you get into actually competition calling? I know there's a difference between the competition calling and your average, let's say Joe, and I don't mean Joe, sorry, but Joe, like the average Joe out there calling for, just to kill ducks. I mean, how did you get into that? What brought you to the world of duck calling?
Yeah, I don't know that there was a specific thing. I grew up duck hunting and turkey hunting quite a bit. And my dad was a really good duck caller, still is a really good duck caller, really good turkey caller. And so it was just something that we did, right? And I love that aspect of communicating with nature and trying to get a turkey to gobble or get ducks to break or get a goose to cup up. And so I always enjoyed that. And I was probably late teens before I even realized what a robust network contest calling was. And I'd always just blown whatever call you could get your hands on. And I saw videos probably on RNTV or on one of the YouTube videos. Someone blew a routine, and I thought, man, that's really cool. I wonder if I can do that. And, tried doing it on, whatever call I had on the lanyard at the time, and quickly realized that wasn't going to cut it, and kind of went down that path of getting contest calls and trading that around and learning, and went to the Virginia State contest and really had no idea what I was getting into. I had an MVP at the time, an RNT MVP, and showed up and did relatively well. I think I was in the top 3 that day, and there were a lot of really nice people, Lawrence Mock and Lee Williams and Trevor Shanahan, the Perez family, who I'm sure we'll get into, and I know Joe is close with as well. And just a lot of people encouraging me, and mustered up the gumption to call Butch a couple of weeks later and order MVP from him, and it was kind of off to the races then.
Nice. So what are you calling these days? What is your number one go-to when you compete?
So I haven't competed in a contest in a couple of years. been kind of busy with work at school, and my wife and I just had our first little one. So we've been, there's a no duck call in the house while they're to kind of cut back on the practice time. But I was always an RNT guy, an MVP guy. I don't think I ever competed in a contest with anything but an MVP. And if I had to compete in a contest tomorrow, I would certainly blow an MVP. I have other calls on my lanyard to hunt with, of course, but I think the MVP is probably the way to go on the contest side.
So I guess here's one thing I'm kind of curious about. I guess when you guys called growing up, was your dad a competition caller?
He wasn't, but he loved duck calling. Yeah. And it was just something that we did in our house. My mom's got a picture of me like taking these little hand crafted decorative decoys and putting them on the rug. And I was hiding behind his recliner with one of those little pop guns and a duck, trying to work the ducks on the TV, I guess. I don't know.
So, I mean, was it, I guess, when you hit that world of mainstream calling, was it, I guess, more difficult for you from switching from the way you were calling because you just wanted to get ducks and everything? How was the transition for you?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I think it came with practice, right?
Yeah.
You certainly blow them similar, but there are things that, I mean, you certainly hit a contest call much, much, much harder. So
yeah,
if anything, it just made me better at running a hunting call. And it was just kind of adding to that, right? How do you control the call better? How are you more precise with the air? I think that those things were much harder. Those were the little nuances that maybe I had to pick up on. Is just the precision of the presentation and doing it the same way, right? Where sometimes when you're duck hunting, if that one's a little clean or that one's a little raspy, it might not hurt you too much.
Yeah, I mean, well, for you and I, what I've always heard talking to some of the guys that we know, that duck call is a musical instrument. And if you can control that duck call from top to bottom on an MVP, I mean, those disciplines are going to go a long ways when you're blowing, the daisy cutter or a mondo or, even FTM in the duck blind. It's going to probably build just more solid. I don't know. I'm kind of lost the word right now.
That happens quite often. So if we go through the show, it's just
techniques, real solid techniques.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. There is a group in the waterfowl world that always says, well, those contest callers can't call ducks. And it's like saying, because Kyle Busch drives a race car, he couldn't drive your wife's Camry to work, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of crazy. Yeah. Now, there's certainly a significant difference between how you blow a duck call on the stage and how you blow a duck call in a blind or in the woods, right? But certainly if you can control an MVP, as Joe said, you can pick up a mondo or a cold weather fan and get all of it out of it. And I think that's probably where the contest guys separate themselves out, not just being able to blow a duck call, but be able to get all of most any duck call they pick up. And that might not get you ducks a lot of days, right? But it's certainly a good way to keep the season alive all year.
Yeah. So we talked a little bit how you started, how you got into it. And I think this is something that kind of intrigues me a lot more when it comes to waterfowl is that side of because some people you can duck hunt, you can waterfowl hunt and still not know how to, blow a duck call. You can use a whistle, whatever. But when it gets to that, you show that. To me, it shows realism in your spread and your decoys, and especially when you're having those days, because sometimes those ducks do want to hear something. You guys obviously know that. So, but another thing that I want to get a topic on is, or want to conversate about, was your exposure. How was that exposure going from Virginia duck calling champ to going to the Worlds? Like, it has to be like, playing high school ball and playing in the SEC, or playing, college ball and then going to the NFL. Do you know what I'm saying? So how was that exposure for you?
Yeah, that was a humbling experience is what it was. So I qualified several times, but I was never in that top tier of guys. And what you find going down there is, there's a middle group there, and I popped up into there a couple of times when I was there. I fell short of it a couple of times too, but I kind of got in that top 35 range. But the difference between being in that 25th to 35th and being in that top 5 or top 10 every year is a huge step up. And that example you used, it's like playing single A high school football and then starting at LSU or starting at Auburn on a Saturday night, right? It's a completely different world. But it was a really cool experience too, being backstage with, I was there when Antonio won, when Brad Allen won a couple of times, being back there with Charles Petty and,
nice.
Being on the bus, and Jim Ronquist is walking around with a camera and talking to Kent Cullum and Trevor and all these guys. It was a really cool experience. And the first year I was probably pretty starstruck by all that. I think Jimbo actually came up to me with the camera for RNTV and asked me how my first routine went. And I just kind of stuttered terrible. That's pretty much how it did go. So it was certainly a humbling experience going from Virginia. And there's a lot of really good duck callers in Virginia. And I don't mean to disparage the state and the callers in the state. That's not the case at all. It's just when you get to the worlds, that means the best in the world, right? And
yeah,
that's a different level.
And it's crazy. It's almost like different regions, even in the worlds, like you can tell their kind of like style of calling. I know when me and Joe talked a little bit about this in the past, but when I started watching videos of worlds, and people talking about like, oh, it's their style or whatever, and whatever it may be, whether West Coast, wherever East Coast style, whatever it may be, that just you gain that style. Or you guys even now to this day, I saw some recent videos where it's just kind of like mixing up. You can't really tell the difference. Mm-hmm. But I guess it's kind of like, I don't know, playing SEC football and then playing, air rated offense out in the Pac-12 or something. So
absolutely.
But so another thing, so we're talking about SEC football and stuff. And a little birdie told me, so are you an Auburn fan? Did you go to Auburn?
So I'm at Auburn now. I'm finishing up a master's down there, but I grew up a big Auburn football fan. I have to admit, I come from a family of hardcore fans of that other school in Alabama. And, and so as a kid, you have to remember pre-Nick Saban, Alabama was quite mediocre, right? And Auburn was the better of the two programs. So I jumped on that, and Auburn's coach at the time was a big turkey hunter, and it seemed like a pretty good fit, right? I could give my dad and brother a hard time and pull for the guy that turkey hunted. That seemed like a good deal. Of course, he left, and Saban came, and the rest is a dynasty, I suppose.
Yeah, so I'm also a big college football fan, but I grew up Texas A&M fan, so I figured I'd put my hat on. But it was rough for us this season playing y'all. I don't want to get too much into football. I thought I'd bring it up.
Hey, A&M's a great school. They got a great atmosphere, a bunch of cadets, and it's a cool.
Man.
Hopefully next season it gets. Hey, we got. Time out, Joe. I still don't know which team you even go for in college.
I'm an LSU fan, man.
And he's from the West Coast.
Yeah, it's because I grew up a Shaq fan. I always liked Shaq.
Okay, nice. I can respect.
Did they play football out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have. Well, down south, we have some Southern teams that are actually pretty decent.
Were pretty decent.
Keyword were pretty decent. About 10, 15, 17
relevant since what, 2005 or 6 or something when they played Texas in the Rose Bowl?
Yeah, 2005.
And then they vacated it.
Yeah. But
that's a whole complete different subject.
Yeah, so we're kind of going off the subject because we'll get into this and then we'll probably hang up on each other and never talk again. I don't know. College football does that to people, but
sure.
But so man, I guess another thing is, and before we get into other conversations, because we'll probably do that throughout this, and especially me, if Joe didn't tell you, I kind of have like Yeah, scattered brain. So I'll jump topics and stuff, and it probably drives people nuts. But oh well, it's me. Um, so I guess one thing I wanted to really get into, because we do have a lot of young following, and we do have a lot of new waterfowlers, and I guess not all of us can be privileged with being around great callers and or good callers who I mean you may think other, and this is probably gonna make Joe's head get even bigger, but I looked at myself trying to get as good as Joe was.
You're in the wrong business trying to get as good as me.
Yeah, but you see, I told you, and I know we talked last time, and it's just for the listeners. Jesse kind of said like he wished Joe would not call in the blind with him because but I'm just putting words in his mouth. But anyways, when these young waterfowlers or these new waterfowlers coming into duck calling, what are some maybe one or two, let's say top 3 techniques they can do? And this can be from looking for the right call, and then just learning that quack, because I know the first step is learning that quack. Everything else comes within time. What are your top 3 techniques as far as when it comes to that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think you said it right. Getting the hang of the quack first is the key, right? You don't want to immediately try to do the hail calls, and that's hard, right? It's kind of like in basketball. You got to learn to dribble before you learn to dunk, right? Yeah. It's the same thing. The dunk's cool, right? Everyone wants to be LeBron or Vince Carter, and that's awesome. But you got to get the quack down, and you have to train yourself to use that hot air, right? With the duck call, there's a propensity to want to blow cold air, like you're, just push that air out and cut the air off with the front of your tongue. But it's really key that you use that larynx and that hot air, like you're trying to fog a mirror. And you get that quack down, and then you can start dragging those out into cadences, right? And then you can kind of get a hold of the feet. I think that's number 1. Number 2 is practicing and finding, avenues to get better. And YouTube has made this much easier. And I was fortunate to be on the leading edge of that YouTube generation where you could get on and hear John Stevens or Trevor Shanahan or Kent Cullum blow a duck call, right? And now the list of really excellent callers on YouTube that you can go listen to, it's just so long. The internet's connected us. You can get on a forum, you can get on Facebook and post something in one of the calling groups and blow a duck call and have 5 of the 15 best duck callers give you a response in 5 minutes to tell you what you need to do to get better. And I think approaching it from that humble attitude is important. And I think picking a good duck call is important, but picking a call that's versatile and relatively easy to blow, right? A mondo is awesome. 90% of the time when I'm duck calling at real ducks, I'm blowing a mondo or a cold weather fan or a short barrel. And I love those calls, but maybe an MVP or a mondo that's hard to blow may not be what you pick up first. If you can go to RNT shop or go see Stump and blow one of his calls and let him tune one for you, that's probably your best bet. And getting something that's middle of the road, a short barrel, a cold weather fan, or his call, a pothole or a 410, something that's relatively easy to blow, but that can be tuned to get more versatility out of it as you get better, I think is really, really important. But if you can go to a shop of a reputable call maker who makes a good duck call and get around them, Echo, right? Go get an Echo Timber. That'd be another one on the short list that can do a lot of things, and you can be around some guys that are really good at it. I think that's probably the key. And the last point I'll add on the calls, and I'm the worst about this. I've never bet a duck call I didn't like. I love buying them and selling them and trading them as much as I like. But when you get one, go get you a short barrel, go get you a cold weather fan, and learn to blow it. And don't get into this habit of, well, that one's not quite perfect. Let me sell it, get something else and try to learn it and sell it. None of them are perfect, right? But until you get to the point where you can't get certain things out of that call, keep that one, get good at it, and then maybe look at, okay, well, this really fits my style better. This fits the geometry inside of my mouth or how I present the air best.
Yeah, well, speaking of presenting the air, like I've talked to Chris about this and other people. So, when you're learning how to duck call, right? Everyone keeps telling you to use certain words like hot, quick, gwick, whack. But explain to us how they're not the actual, you're not using those words, but you're using the breath or the air presentation of those words. Give people techniques to use or how to not use necessarily the words, but to transfer it over to taking that vocalization out and using in just that word's air presentation.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And that goes back to getting that hot air up out of your chest, blowing from your chest rather than blowing through your lips, right? And that's a lot of where we get that from. Like the hut or the hot is one that comes up a lot. And that's why when you say hot, if you'll put your hand in front of your mouth and say the word hot air comes out, right? Because you blow from the larynx, right? It's that hot. And the way you can test yourself to find out if you're presenting that air right is to flip the call around backwards and quack into the call. You can kind of pick up on, okay, what am I doing into the call? Because then you're paying attention to the presentation and not listening to the noise. And you can use any of those words, quit, hot, put, whatever works best for you. Just make sure that you're bringing that hot air up, right? I think that's really the key. And that's another thing, kind of the frustrations of getting good with a duck call. One of the things you run into is sticking the call, right? Generally speaking, blowing that hot air helps that, right? As opposed to kind of putting into the call, which tends to create a lot of that moisture and things like that. Yep.
So everything that was said actually was really good. And it's not just for, it's something I can learn, but there's something that really bugged me of what you said, and it's bugging me right now. You said it, you put an example. It's like shooting. It's like learning to dribble and then learning to dunk. I'm 34 years old. I'm 5'7". I grew up playing basketball. I still can't dunk. So maybe we should do learning to dribble and maybe learning to shoot threes, because that was my go-to game now when I started playing ball.
That's why there's a whistle.
Yeah, I'm never gonna dunk, so I'm probably just gonna shoot threes. So this whole conversation, like, man, all this stuff is great, but that little thing and what he said in the example is bugging the shit at me. But no, it was all great, man, and that's something that I think a lot of people kind of get confused, and young kids and even new waterfowlers and even people who've been calling or been duck calling. I think everybody always has, and you guys obviously, and Joe knows, there's always something more to learn. So that's something great. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
How much is finding a mentor in like the calling and the duck hunting aspect helps? So me and you were lucky, right? We grew up duck hunting with dads that were, into it, grandfathers that are into it. And then somewhere in our adult years, we got lucky with getting with, and like, I'm not bragging, we're both blessed. And we talked about it in the blind, talking about how lucky we were and how blessed we were just being at the right time, right moment of being around, guys that were in the industry. Like I'll tell you, we were talking about John Perez. Like I got lucky, I met John, and I got lucky John opened a lot of doors for me.
Yes, sir.
In your early years, you were around Butch and all them, and taking you under your wing. But how much help is for these younger guys to find a duck hunting mentor? Maybe someone down the street, an uncle, a friend, or whatnot, or like you said with YouTube, finding that one guy I guess you like on YouTube, and really kind of just learning from that one person for consistency.
I think that's huge. That's huge. And you're right. We were both blessed to have dads that took us duck hunting and didn't yell at us when we blew ducks out every once in a while, right? We're trying to learn how to duck call. And at least I still blow them out sometimes.
Yeah.
I think we all do. But yeah, I think that is huge, having a mentor. And one of the good things about the duck hunting world is I think sometimes there is a lot of competition in the public land space, and there's a lot of reason for that. But generally, if you're a kid and you're listening to this, somebody will take you duck hunting. And I certainly hope so. If not, we've got a lot of reflecting to do as a community if they want. Yeah. And finding that mentor, finding a call maker, call the call maker. We've all had an opportunity to interact with a lot of those folks, and just about all of them will take your call and give you feedback about what you're doing right and wrong on their call, right? And what you need to work on and get better at. So that is incredibly important.
Yeah, just don't call Joe because he gets short tempered real quick.
Only with you,
from
bud.
experience.
Only with you.
So I know we've said this before, but
yeah, I taught you how to use a whistle, didn't I?
Yeah, Joe, I'll kill it on the whistle. But yeah, you've seen Happy Feet, right? We've said this before. I don't know. You've seen Happy Feet, right?
Yeah.
Jesse, you've seen that where that penguin, that the way he sings? That's kind of the same as me duck calling, so.
Hey, I don't believe that for a minute.
You say you've gotten better though. You were sending me
I was watching videos. I mean, you kind of heard some of my stuff when you're out in the blind, but I think it's just getting that. I'm just really working on the quack because, like you said earlier, and that you hit it on the nail. Is like it's hard from like starting to start hail calling because you want to advance. You want to I guess run before you crawl. I'm not going to use your analogy, dribble before you dunk, because I still can't dunk. But you get what I'm saying? It's like that. You got to learn to hit off the tee before you can hit a fast pitch. So it's just one of those things. And I think it took me a little longer, but I think it's just because I focus a lot on like trying to get my other world of techniques down. Because I mean, duck calling's one technique. Then you got tactics that you got to learn when you're waterfowling. You got to, learning how you want your spread, learning how you want to, hide your silhouettes or burlap or whatever it may be. Just a bunch. It's just a lot of factors into it, and that's something that got me, I guess, attracted to the waterfowl community, and that's something I love, and that's something that I'm still pursuing. But I think talking to Joe too, even as experienced as you or him are, you're always learning.
We learn something every day.
And Joe talked about this. Me and Joe talked about this the other day. Is like there's new stuff coming out every day, and it's just. And there's old stuff that were out back then that are now being popular now. And we talked about the other day, Joe. So it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, even hunting with Jesse, like, bantering back and forth about calling and all that. Learning, I am a big Mondo fan. We talked about this. My wife, we talked about it in my house. There's two things we don't talk about in my house: 1911 pistols and RMT Mondos. Because if you want to see something that's gone in and out Joe's shelves or Joe's safe, is custom 1911s and Mondos. We talk about trading duck calls and some. That's me. I because I'm not a duck call collector. And I get a call and I don't use it for a while. Like, well, I'm not using it, and I'll get rid of it. But then I'll be like, man, I really wish I had that call back. And like now I'm looking for a Mondo again because. Watching you break those mallards we had and having them hovering with that Mondo and just makes me think, hey, man, that's something I am missing on my lanyard, on my repertoire. And you just constantly learn every time taking techniques from people from different flyaways. That's why I like duck hunting so much, because deer hunting is kind of deer hunting. No offense to people, but someone in South Georgia is putting out a pile of corn over a feeder in a stand the same way they're doing out here in Louisiana.
Yeah. And that's something I did was big game hunting before I got into waterfowl. But let me ask Joe, what is your definition of a call collector?
So
I've seen your calls.
Yes, but I don't have
all the calls you have.
So I don't have what they call shelf queens, right? Okay. All my calls get used throughout the year. And I do have some calls that should be shelf queens.
Yeah.
And they have scratches and marks on them. But I guess a call collector is someone who, they have their same two calls that they're constantly going to use, but they buy expensive, lavish calls that they're, will be sitting on their call shelf that'll never get used.
Because you have some, I think you even have like a custom like call holder or whatever.
Yeah, my wife made that.
Okay, I'm just saying, what's your definition of a call collector? Because I want to know, is it if you have more than 10 calls, you're a collector? Or is it if you have more than 50 calls, you're a call collector? Because I think you're past that 50, bud.
But, I'm not past 50, but there's some calls in my house.
Yeah. Yeah, man. But so I guess let's get into I guess something that Joe's always curious about too is how did your season go so far this past season?
It was pretty rough. It was really bad. So I live in a unique part, not really in a flyway, right? I live in the southwestern part of Virginia, right up the road from Virginia Tech. And so I live on the New River, which, kind of comes off of the Ohio, right? So we get a few ducks that pass down through there, but for whatever reason, the last 3 or 4 years have been really rough. And there's been a lot of conversation about mallard populations that breed in upstate New York. And I'm not a biologist, and I know there's a lot of debate there, right? But certainly our numbers have been down the last few years. And I don't know how much of that's weather versus breeding versus food availability where we are, which has been impacted too. But it was just tough year. We had one pretty decent mallard hunt early in the year, but we only get 2 mallards now, and that's what we harvest the most of. So it was just one of those years, and the weather didn't get here till now. I actually think there's a few ducks around today. We definitely got that kind of weather. But,
over.
it would be okay if we got to hunt them in February, but that's just not the case.
Yeah, that's crazy because you're not the only person that's talked about that in any flyway so far. If you're anywhere south of, let's say, the Mason-Dixie line, or even anywhere close to that, it's been insane. And I think I don't know everybody's experience, but the majority of the people that me and Joe have talked to, like in Louisiana or even here in Texas where I'm at, or there where you're at, it has been a rough season. But you see pictures of guys up in Nebraska, up north in Wisconsin and Michigan, like they're like, "Oh, this season's great!" Like, oh, yeah, just keeping them up there, bud. Like, let the boys in the South have some. Like, but it's insane, and I'd be curious to talk to a biologist. Maybe the weather had something to do with it, because, like you guys said, with this cold front that we're having right now, it's coming in. Like, I don't know if you heard how, I guess, the whole thing that happened on the news, how dumb us Texans are from that cold front that we had no electricity. It was like I don't know, but we're about to have another one, so they're preparing for another one to come through. And today I went out and I saw geese, I saw birds in the sky, just everywhere. I saw ducks, and it just blew my mind. I was like, man, just give me 2 more days. Like, God.
Yeah, but even Jesse's seen, we didn't see a lot of ducks. Second day we seen a decent amount. But by the time they get here to Louisiana, they're so well educated.
Yeah.
And there's so many. Even Jesse said when I picked him up as a plane, like, I can see why a duck wants to come to Louisiana. There's water everywhere. And there's rice fields everywhere. Everyone's flooding rice. And just because they're flooding doesn't mean they're hunting it. So I think for us down here, they got so spread out and just being... by the time they get here to Louisiana, they have a PhD in survivability. They've been getting shot at from Manitoba all the way down here to Lake Charles, Louisiana. The ones that we get here, the dumb ones died around the Dakota time frame. Dumb ones don't get out of the Dakotas, and it's hard. But we've seen so many geese, and even those geese are so educated, like. There was a one flock where I was like, "Hey, get down! They're gonna do it," and everyone's ready. Everyone's like super pumped, and then all you hear is that. I was like, and they don't even fight flare. They just kind of go away. Like right about 60 yards out, and you're just like, God dang. So
those are smart birds for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. When we broke those mallards and they were hovering up there above us and she was just quack, 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 I was thinking the only way this happens if God ordains it, because there's no way those ducks are falling for this.
Yeah. And it's weird because you turned them on a dime. They're about 200 yards out before you got on that mondo, and they came in and for guys, I know we're using terms that people may or may not know. The mondo. Mondo's an R&T call that's what they consider a cut down call, a derivative off of old D2 ult that they used to use back in the early 30s. and that they used to modify and call it a cut down. And now, through the way evolution worked with the duck calls, we've remade it as a Mondo. And there's other brands that make these cut down style calls. But I mean, it worked, and they wanted to come, but it's just like you're saying, getting from from round 2 to the third round. By that time, late season duck calling, it's such a minute thing that could get a duck to maybe look for another field, or like, what, this is the field I want. So I mean, for being a pretty good, I think of you as an advanced caller. What are some techniques and ways for the average hunter to do when they're reading the birds, or in the late season? What can they do to finish those real wary birds?
Yeah, if somebody else knows, let me know, because I don't think there's any magic formula. I think it's the classic stuff that we were talking about mentors, the same stuff granddad or dad taught you, right? You got to be where they want to be. You got to hide from them, and then you can worry about the spread and how you call them. But the first two, if you get those two things out of the way, then the second two get a heck of a lot easier, right? And so I think it's read them and kind of paying attention to the way they act. And we were talking about Mondos, and Joe did a really good job explaining that. I'm a big fan of a loud, raspy call, a Mondo, a cold weather fan, something with a lot of duck. And I've always been of the opinion that I'd rather use a loud call and use it less than blow a quiet call the entire time they're working, right? And so just trying to hit those ducks on the corners and kind of pay attention to what they like and what makes them pick up, and not calling too much when they're directly over top of you. A lot of folks debate about that, but if you're not hid real well, those ducks do a pretty good job, in my experience, of picking up where that sound's coming from, and sometimes letting off of them when they're doing that. And part of it depends on the wind. They're way easier to work when you got a lot of wind, right? But when you don't have much, it's kind of a trial and error thing as to whether they want to hear a lot or hear a little. And just like turkey hunting, some days they want to be talked to all the time, and other days, they seem like they kind of want to be left alone.
Yeah, and I'm with you as far as because I've done a lot of turkey hunting too growing up, but I don't think I do as much calling as y'all. So I think that's something that a little bit I guess more forte. But I think at least what I found, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, there's days that I'll call and the birds will come. Now when I call, it's just quacks here, quacks there. And then there's days where I'll quack and they don't want to go there. And they just, and I wonder, I mean, I think sometimes they want to hear it, sometimes they don't. And I could imagine when you guys are out there, it must be frustrating, because that's a big arsenal in y'all's tool belt when y'all go out there. So,
yeah, well, I mean, if you looked at it on our lanyards between me, you, and my kids,
yeah, I've seen it.
I pick on them with, God, you guys are a little spoiled, because they have some, they have some adult size lanyards. It's rough. It's a rough when you think about, man, how much money that one blind man invests in just calls. We can't get 2 mallards a break, but go what Chris is saying is, yeah, I've been there where sometimes less is more, and I've seen ducks where they want movement over everything,
Mm-hmm.
and other ducks where they want to hear it, or they're hearing you, they want you to call all the way until they got the boots in the water. But kind of talk about your lanyard and how you have it set up with the different sounds, and why is it important? There's some guys that say, hey, I have 2 or 3 calls: a goose call, a whistle, and a duck call. That's all you need. But for me down here, sometimes I need different sounds. What's the importance of having different sounds and different pitches? And do you need it, or is it kind of gimmick?
I don't know. It probably depends on the day that you ask just about any duck caller, right? What they like. I'm a fan of having kind of the extremes, right? Again, I tend to like a loud call, because you can blow a loud call quiet, but you can only blow a quiet call so loud, right? And
yeah.
So I blow a Mondo LT. Most of the time I have a cold weather fan, which I'm a huge fan of. after blowing Joey's 410, I think I'm gonna have to get a 410 too. I love that little thing. And then I have a wooden R&T short barrel that's really nasally and really mellow. So the idea there being you have a Mondo, it's really loud, really harsh, it barks, and then having a quieter, mellower call for those days where they just need a little bit of talking to, or a day where you don't have a lot of wind, right? If you've got one of those kind of low ceiling, cloudy, foggy days where the sound just carries a long way and seems like it's echo, and then I'll blow that call. But there's not a whole heck of a lot of thought to it, and it's changed over the years, but generally it's been something loud and harsh and something quiet and mellow, and I don't think you can go wrong with that pair. And a whistle. You know, we joke about a whistle, but sometimes they love to hear that Drake whistle, and you never know if you're going to run into a pintail or teal or what have you.
Yeah, no more making fun of Chris.
Those jerk strings kill ducks too.
Yeah, motion kills ducks.
That's right.
That was my job. Hunting with Joe. He's like, don't call it just here. Here's a jerk.
Here's a jerk string. Keep pulling.
You do really good at that. I was like, all right. And he kind of got me the first time we went out when we first started going out hunting together. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm the best jerk stringer ever. And I thought about it, I was like, my dad used to do this to me. This is kind of insulting. It's like,
keep going, son.
Yeah, it's a little.
Hand me the tools. Hold the light. Hold whatever.
But man, I think you're right. I think, and then this goes with everything, and y'all know. I mean, everything works. Motion in the water, jerk string, calling. I think everything works, and I think I found that more hunting these timber holes with Joe. We just kicked the water, and they loved it. You know, loved it, and it was. And I do that till this day when I'm up here hunting in Texas. So it's
well. I mean, a big thing is staying consistent. I know we talked about it. I mean, I'm consistent with everything I can with calls, decoys, my chokes. Is just staying consistent. I mean, just kind of like Jesse talked about earlier, is some guys will get a call, they blow it a little bit, and the calls, they haven't outgrown that call. I mean, they haven't mastered to that call yet. They're like, well, this doesn't sound good. It can't be me. It has to be this call. Then they go get something else. And once again, it can't be me. It's this call. Same thing with shooting. Like, oh, I'm not missing the clay pigeons, or I'm not missing the duck. This choke is. I need to get a new choke. Another $100. Another $100.
Or Cabela's or Academy, they sold me blanks. So it's like
different shot shells. So I mean, a lot of it is finding the right shot shell that fits you and your choke and your shotgun. Finding that call that you're comfortable with. When you're comfortable, you're confident. When you're confident, you're going to kill ducks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess kind of my last thing, and we'll keep on going with Joe's topics. But so when your setups, what do your setups look like when you're, as far as shotguns, choke, shells? Are you the kind of like whatever shells I can grab out of my bag, or do you have specific ones you like? How does your setup look like when you're out there, basically just killing ducks?
Yeah, so I'm definitely one of those get whatever's out of the box. You know, if it's dark and my flashlight battery's dying, it might be 2 3-inch and a 3.5, and you're just kind of guessing what's coming next when you're shooting. You know, so I don't have a favorite shot shell. I mean, we shoot Expert or Federal or whatever we could get. Now we pick up a box of Boss if we're going on a hunt where we think something like pintails or canvasbacks are going to be around. I'd certainly get a box of that. You know, it's good stuff, that or heavy metal. But I do shoot a Pattern Master choke. I'm a fan of those. I think they're maybe worth the investment. And just shoot a Beretta shotgun. That my favorite's a Eureka that I got back in high school, and they've shot it a whole bunch, and that's my favorite. I've got a couple others, but that one's probably my favorite. And we run small spreads, so 3 dozen decoys is a lot for us mallard hunting. We hunt a lot of small water, a lot of small creeks, and when we hunt public stuff, it's still usually working small bunches. Yeah, obviously, if we diver hunt, then that dictates a large spread. But we hunt a lot out of boats or layout blinds. So The part of Virginia I'm at, we've got some lakes and rivers where we can run jet boats, which is kind of cool. And we run an Avery pop-up that's probably 30 years old, 20 years old anyway. And then when we're hunting fields, we just hunt layout blinds. We hunt a lot of hay pastures that have small creeks in them and try to hunt those when things aren't when everything else is frozen, right? We try to get on those. So nothing particularly special or complicated.
Yeah. Out there in Virginia, on the Atlantic Flyway, what are the main ducks you do see? I know you say you see a lot of mallards, but unfortunately, in the Atlantic Flyway 2 years ago, they dropped it from a 4-bird limit down to a 2-bird limit for the mallards. What are other birds that kind of fill that 6-bird bag?
We have a lot of black ducks, which is really cool, and something that a lot of the country doesn't have. So that's something I probably took for granted as a kid. I was much older before I realized that was something special. We have pretty good wood duck hunting. It depends on the year and water level, like it does for everybody, right? Yeah. There are years where we have divers. We get bluebills and have in the past had cool trophy ducks like redheads and canvasbacks and have killed a few over the years. But you really need to go to the coast of Virginia on the Potomac River, out on the Sounds in North Carolina to get into that. But few pintails every once in a while. But most of our birds throughout the year are mallards, black ducks, and, a few teal, buffleheads, ringnecks, things like that. A few gadwalls, but not too many. And we have, like most of the country, more resident geese than you can buy shotgun shells for.
Yeah. You guys also have what do you call it? A resident goose season in September?
We do.
Now, one thing I do envy you guys in Virginia, and I know you say you guys where you're at, you don't get much teal hunting, but I really love that September. You guys with your teal hunting, you have that blue wing / what do you call it? Wood duck. You should both shoot both of those in September. Where here in Louisiana, we have plethora of wood duck in September. We can only shoot those teal.
Right.
I think that's a Louisiana State and Game trap.
Well, I would love to have teal like you guys do, though. I enjoy our wood duck hunt, but it'd be cool to see some blue wings. I've seen one flock of blue wings my entire life. We just don't have many. It's too cold by the time the September season rolls around. Now, we'll have them sometimes in the summer, but it's really rare for us to keep them through Labor Day.
Yeah. Well, we're going to change that to September.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah, we're changing that.
Man. Yeah, it's definitely from teal hunting in Louisiana, man. It's definitely man. There's definitely.
I've already talked to Scoopville Adventures.
Yeah.
Oh, gee, he's like, I have the days. You bring the people.
Yeah, so that'll be a good time.
That's happening.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
But I guess, Joe, do you have, before we kind of wrap it up, do you have anything else you want to bring up?
No, nothing really. I just really want to thank Jesse for come down visiting. A lot of people don't know, or you might not even know. Hey, Jesse's been a good hunting partner of mine for quite a long while. I've been through Vow and Honor and through John and Ben Perez. One sentimental fun fact: Jesse was there when Joey shot his first duck.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And I tell that story. Those wood ducks came in, we all shot, and this one lonesome, and then, I told Joey, hey, I try to teach safety, as much safety as I can to the kids. Don't shoot, bud, until I tell you to. And I kind of got excited when it was a pretty big group of wood ducks came in. We shoot, we drop some or whatnot, and then a lonesome drake comes in, and all I hear is bam, splash. I look over, I thought Jesse shot it, and he looks at Joey, and Joey's shucking his shell. And he's kind of like, oh, man, Dad didn't tell me to shoot. And I was like, I was ecstatic at that point.
Yeah.
But, that's a fun fact about Jesse. He was there when Joey shot his first duck. On Joey's very first duck hunt where he got to shoot.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite hunts I've ever been on, too. We had so much fun goofing off that morning, and That was really cool. Joey just looked like Clint Eastwood, right? Stuck in that shotgun. He was the baddest dude in the blind that morning, no doubt.
Yeah, he's told us that story a couple times and I see Joey shooting now, and man, that kid can shoot.
Yeah, he can.
But
yeah.
I've seen some, especially when Landon, before he started shooting that 20, him shooting that 410, the single shot, him making some.
Yeah, I will tell you
shots. I'm like, it's like, yeah.
We're talking about shells with that 410.
Yeah.
I mean, especially I had him some number 9 bismuth from heavy bismuth, and during teal season, he was making some pretty, poking that out to 30 yards, dropping some teal, and then even with you dropping some of those divers with that 410. Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird time. When I grew up, when we all came up, kids shotgun was a 20 gauge, and everyone shot a 12. And even you were telling Jesse, your dad used to shoot that big 10 gauge.
Yeah.
And now you have guys shooting 410s. I was even 28 gauges. I didn't even know. Did any of y'all know there was a 32 gauge?
I did not. I
seen a box of shells with 32 gauge in the store the other day, and I had to double look. I had to look at it like 4 or 5 times, and then I Googled it. And I guess in Europe, that's a big European gauge. Well, Europe has different shotgun gauges, but with the sub gauge, the technology available on the sub gauges, man, it's crazy what people are doing now with little fun guns.
Yeah, that's insane. I think. What we talked about, that's something I'm going to get my daughter on this season is a little 410 single shot. So,
yeah.
But I'm excited. Again, hey, Jesse, I appreciate you coming on the show, man. It was nice meeting you. It's kind of we met before, but it was, I was on dial up.
Yeah, well, people don't know this is take 2 of this episode.
Yeah, at the Bates Hotel with some really sketchy people, but we'll leave that for another podcast because I had some embarrassing moments over there. So, and probably won't even talk about it, but I'm just kidding. But I really appreciate it, man. It was really nice talking to you. We got a lot of great stuff for the viewers. And Joe, it was really good, man. Do you have any comments?
No, hey, so thanks again coming on, and definitely I'm gonna link up with you in turkey season and get you, brother, and your dad down here for teal season. We need to make that happen.
That sounds like a plan, Joe. Thank you guys so much for having me on. Thank you for what you're doing with Valor and Honor and promoting that. And this is really cool. I really appreciate you guys having me on.
No problem.
No problem. And like always, like we end the show, I want to thank Valor and Honor Outdoors for what they do for our veterans, service members, first responders, and other organizations that do that just like them. I also want to thank everybody that supported us from this point on, and we're just going to keep on going and keep this movement going. So like always, y'all have a good one, and let Valor not fail.